My hands froze the moment I saw the text on his phone. Loved our book club last night. Your bed's comfier than mine. The words landed like a brick. My breath stuttered, the kitchen leaning in around me. His bed, our bed, another body written into our sheets. For a moment, everything turned to margined paper, and I read all the ways I'd been fooled. I am Ellie, 34, a librarian who worships margins and dog-eared pages. I adore quiet evenings and the smell of old paper. Nate, 36, with his easy laugh and teacher's hands, was my chapter where the plot finally settled. Tara, 32, with her polished flirt and syllabus smile, became the margin note that ruined the page. We met at a fundraiser where I stacked donations of old novels and Nate charmed trivia from a folding table. Coffee and a secondhand bookstore sealed us. We promised through every chapter with a park bench witness. I believed in our little narrative until the ink ran. It was easy to trust him because his laugh had been a steady refrain. The signs unspooled like mold in a damp spine. Department meetings that stretched into late nights. Alerts on his phone angled away when I entered a room. The way he mentioned Tara more often. The casual book club comments that landed like bees. I joked that he was planning a revolution of curriculum. I told myself I was safe in the fiction of our life. When Tara's text arrived, I did not explode. I did not rear and accuse. I closed the phone calmly as if it were a loose page and slid into a different role. Silence became my first weapon. The quiet doesn't look like a battle plan, but in libraries we know. Silence is where secrets come undone and evidence breathes. I worked like a forensic archivist. Nate left his phone on the counter while he showered, and the blink of that notification felt like fate. I backed up the device before his towel hit the floor. Messages unfurled like a sorted serial. Photos, intimate jokes, hotel names, playlists labeled to sound innocent. "She's sweet, but you're my spark," one line said. The betrayal read like a mocking dedication. I mirrored his cloud drive and pulled receipts and confirmations into my own files. Librarians index, cross-reference, and keep records. The skills that make me humble also make me dangerous when used as evidence. I printed confirmations, stored screenshots, labeled folders by date. The proof grew into a small, cold fortress where every new file added a brick. I watched them, not with violent rushes but with patient observation. I pretended errands to sit in my car and catalog the way they moved together. In the school lot, they were careless, laughing at something small, close like a secret handshake. Their shoulders grazed, and my chest learned new bruises. The world did not shift for them. It only shifted for me. At home, I resumed the domestic choreography. I cooked, I smiled, I listened to his stories about committees and lesson plans. He assumed my silence was dulled hurt or ignorance. He did not notice the tiny ledger under our piano bench, the little hard drive updated nightly with his receipts. He never saw me checking times and aligning details like a plotter writing an ending. I started small, testing edges of the trap. A dinner invite to a parent who had influence. A casual mention to another teacher about the talent show attendance. The school's end-of-year performance, always brimming with parents and cameras, became the stage I wanted. Nate would MC. Tara would perform. It was perfect theater, and the auditorium held all the right witnesses. I volunteered to manage the slideshow. The principal handed me the account with the kind of trust reserved for people who categorize dust. He called me helpful and busy. I took the responsibility like a curator taking a velvet rope. It was a small administrative favor with enormous potential, a backstage key that opened a door I would close forever on them. My evenings turned into methodical work. I cropped screenshots for readability, adjusted timestamps so evidence read like a continuous narrative. I compiled hotel booking names with his calendar entries. I indexed the messages by tone and date. Each edit was a small cruelty disguised as professionalism. I kept everything organized. Chaos is messy, and I do not perform well in mess. I planted passive traps to ensure they were careless. An email from a fake vendor praising Jason's craft, no, wait, wrong name, was not my style. Instead, I left subtle things in places they'd find. I forgot a library book at Nate's classroom with a handwritten note tucked inside. The note hinted at the show being crowded. It was the sort of nudge that seemed accidental but landed on schedule. On the day I first tailed them after a rehearsal, I felt like a character in a noir novel, though I wore none of the cliché. I sat in my old sedan and watched them through the school glass, Tara's script in her hands and Nate adjusting a mic. They practiced lines, exchanged looks, and the rehearsal felt intimate in a way I once mistook for love. Now it felt like conspiracy. Their arrogance grew. They began to assume I was far too absorbed in my own quiet to be a threat. I let them. The best theater is when the audience forgets they are part of the play. I kept my smiles as neutral as index cards. I answered his casual, long day with a practiced tilt of the head and a warm, empty answer. He stopped offering details. He offered denials instead. I ran a dry rehearsal of my own. I timed slides and arranged a sequence that built like a chorus. The first reveal would be small, text blurbs rolling like passages from a cheap romance. The second would marry statements to images. The finale would be incontrovertible. Hotel names aligned with his calendar. Receipts that mirrored dates he claimed department meetings. I wanted the audience to feel like witnesses in a courtroom. There were nights I almost cracked, when the easy domesticity at home felt like a theater set and I wanted to tear down the lights. I wanted to confront him in person and watch shame paint his face. But shame often hides, and I had learned from old romances that confrontation rarely fixes structural rot. I wanted collapse, not apology. A collapsed structure declares its own failure. An apology can be rebuilt. The week of the show, I took extra precautions. Copies of every file went to 3 locations: my laptop drive, a hidden desk drawer at work, and a discreetly mailed package to myself with the subject line, temporary storage. That package would serve if anything interfered with the main event. I am, it turns out, a librarian who thinks like an insurance policy. Each evening before the show, I rehearsed my facial neutrality. I smiled when he joked about his opening banter. I complimented the new shirt Tara wore at rehearsal, the color flattering on her. I tolerated her poem talk and nodded like a good audience member. Under everything was the ledger, the file that would turn performance into prosecution. I took careful sips of my own coffee and pretended not to know how to make things burn. On the last night before the auditorium filled, I placed a small USB on the tech table labeled Extra Media. I didn't plug it in. I left it to be found later by the tech who always panics and plugs anything marked extra. I also synced the slideshow to the laptop assigned to me, embedding a hidden folder set to autoplay when the presentation advanced to slide 27. Timing matters in a show. Timing beats truth when truth is bland. I slept easily for the first time in months, an odd piece after a season of insomnia. I pictured the audience's murmur when the first screen cap came up, their eyebrows knitting together when names matched, the sickened draw of breath when receipts appeared with matching timestamps. The thought of them draining color under that light steadied me. I was no longer a widow of hope. I was a soldier with a plan. The morning of the performance felt ordinary, nauseatingly ordinary. Nate kissed me at the door with that same old warmth, and I returned it like a practiced actor. He left humming a song he'd use as a cue. I watched him go with more love than I had in months, but none for his choices. The auditorium lights waited with the patience of saints. The crowd would be the audience and the jury, and my slideshow would be the exhibit. By afternoon, I ran the final check and felt the adrenaline that comes with a good stage show. I adjusted a slide here, corrected a timestamp there. The tech team was busy with trivial concerns, and I nodded like someone who preferred spreadsheets. My chest carried a small, private victory. The first act of this revenge would start quietly and then expose itself like bad editing. When the lights dropped and the first chords of the talent show swelled, I watched Nate walk the stage with the confidence of a man who thinks he owns the story. Tara's poem would follow soft applause, and the auditorium would be ripe for the reveal. I sat at the laptop with the fade effect ready, my finger on the arrow key like a conductor's baton. Outside, the world was unaware. Inside, the curtain trembled. The auditorium buzzed with chatter and the low hum of lights. Parents leaned forward in anticipation. Students fidgeted, and Nate strode on stage like he owned every seat. Tara twirled behind him, script in hand, smiling with the kind of pride that now felt like mockery. I sat in the back, laptop open, fingers poised like a conductor ready to unleash the orchestra of their destruction. The show started as usual. Nate's jokes drew polite laughs. Tara's poem about love and freedom rolled on the projector as background art, her voice light, confident, unaware. I sipped my tea, calm as a librarian cataloging chaos. Every detail I had prepared was loaded and timed. The slides cued to reveal betrayal like chapters of a damning exposé. Slide 1 appeared, a casual text snippet. "Can't wait for tonight." A murmur ran through the room. Nate smiled nervously at the audience, adjusting the mic, trying to ignore the tension. I advanced the slide. Photos of Nate and Tara on our couch flickered across the screen, timestamped during supposed meetings. Gasps broke out. Slide 2. Text layered over receipts, hotel bookings, dinner reservations, messages of flirtation. Parents' eyes widened. Teachers exchanged whispers. Nate's confident grin faltered. Tara froze mid-verse, mouth open as if a poem could save her from the truth. I clicked again. More proof, more exposure, more undeniable evidence. The auditorium leaned in. The crowd began murmuring louder, phones raising, capturing the spectacle. Nate tried to regain composure, stepping forward, clearing his throat, but every word he spoke was drowned in whispers and shocked stares. Tara's script fell from trembling hands. Her proud smile cracked, replaced by disbelief. I felt a surge of cold satisfaction. The trap had snapped shut. I advanced to the third slide, side-by-side comparisons. Nate's department meetings aligned with hotel stays. Emails he claimed were curriculum work matched confirmations for dinner dates with Tara. Texts calling her my spark scrolled beneath their photos. The room gasped in unison, a symphony of judgment. The facade of their perfect little secret shattered in real time. Parents pointed, murmurs turning to whispers of outrage. Teachers clutched chairs, unsure whether to intervene. I stepped to the front, microphone in hand. Nate, your story is over. Mine is just starting. The words were calm, deliberate. No tears, no begging, only control. The audience leaned closer, absorbing every syllable, knowing the wronged wife had claimed her stage. Nate's face drained color. His words stumbled, attempting excuses that fell flat against visual evidence. Tara's eyes darted, seeking a savior that did not exist. Their combined arrogance had blinded them, and now every whisper in the room was a dagger. I watched them crumble, not in vengeance alone, but in absolute precision. Every slide, every snippet of proof was a calculated blow. Slide 4 revealed the playlist, Tara's Vibes. Each song's timestamp, each deleted note, every file flagged for their secret interactions. It was meticulous, undeniable. Parents recognized hotel logos, familiar addresses, the timing impossible to deny. The entire room understood the betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was deliberate, systematic, a history repeated in front of witnesses. Nate tried to speak again, voice rising, but the auditorium drowned him out. Phones captured the chaos, students filming the spectacle while teachers exchanged horrified glances. Tara's performance dissolved into embarrassment, her proud voice collapsing under scrutiny. The auditorium had become court, gallery, and jury, all witnessing the unraveling of two lives built on lies. I clicked the next sequence. Receipts, messages, time-stamped photos overlaid on maps showing routes from work to hotels. Every department meeting was mapped, every lie made visible. The audience gasped, some whispering to neighbors, others pointing. The truth was no longer hidden. It was bright, undeniable, and utterly public. Nate's attempts at charm fell flat. I advanced to the final slide, a collage of text messages, photos, and receipts arranged like a damning mosaic of betrayal. Nate and Tara frozen in the frame of their crimes. I stepped forward, voice carrying through the auditorium. This isn't just about texts. It's about trust, honesty, and the life you thought you could rewrite. It ends here. Every eye was on me. The auditorium erupted, phones recording, whispers escalating, parents gasping, teachers shaking heads. Nate's attempts at explanation were drowned by murmurs and pointed fingers. Tara's script lay forgotten on the stage. The performance intended to celebrate talent had turned into a revelation of deceit. The air was thick with judgment and the heat of exposed lies. Nate's career imploded in minutes. Complaints flooded the principal's office, parents demanded accountability, and administrators moved swiftly to sideline him. Tara's transfer was immediate. Whispers about her character spread faster than her lesson plans ever could. Their professional reputations shattered with the same velocity that their emotional facade had collapsed. The world outside the auditorium began to know their truth. I sat back, heart steady, as chaos swirled around me. The revenge was not vengeance in the petty sense. It was a meticulous dismantling, a precise correction of balance. They had treated deceit like art. I returned it as law. The auditorium, once their stage, had become the arena of their downfall. Witnesses confirmed the story I had cataloged, the proof undeniable. After the show, I filed for divorce, not out of bitterness alone, but as a formal assertion of autonomy. I left the house, sold it, and created my own space. Ellie's Lit Haven, a bookstore buzzing with community and life, became my sanctuary. Each shelf, each display, each corner reflected my agency, a library of freedom built from the remnants of betrayal. A year passed. I rebuilt my life on honesty and creativity. Therapy anchored me, friends supported, and slowly the sharp sting of betrayal dulled to a manageable memory. I met Sam, a poet of 37 with warm eyes and a gentle voice. Our connection was deliberate, slow, and honest, built on trust that had been absent for far too long. Love now had rules I could rely on. Nate, meanwhile, became a cautionary tale. His days reduced to night classes, his reputation tarnished, his pride shattered. Tara existed as a whisper of gossip, her smile replaced by apprehension. The people they had once controlled now measured their every step against the spectacle I had orchestrated. My revenge, precise and public, had rewritten the narrative completely. I watched from afar as they adjusted to the consequences of their choices. It was not joy in their suffering, but satisfaction in the restoration of balance. I did not linger on the pain of their betrayal. Instead, I focused on the pages I had written for myself, the chapters I could now live freely, and the life that belonged to me without compromise or deceit. Ellie's Lit Haven thrived. The community flocked to the store, unaware of the precise story behind its creation, yet drawn to the authenticity and passion embedded in every display. I curated readings, book clubs, and workshops, creating spaces where honesty and literature intersected. My life was rebuilt as a living story, one authored entirely by me, unmarred by treachery. Sam and I explored our world together, sharing poetry over coffee, debating literature, and laughing without caution. Our bond, unlike the fragile one Nate had abandoned, was solid, nurtured by transparency and mutual respect. Each day was a confirmation that life after betrayal could still be rich, full, and meaningful, proving resilience stronger than despair. Nate's occasional attempts to reconnect through messages or calls went unanswered. His apologies, hollow without acknowledgement of the public spectacle, failed to reach me. The past existed as a cautionary chapter, a reference point for decisions and trust. My story moved forward, each page deliberate, each word chosen with intention, while his lingered in regret. I had been betrayed, yes, but in that betrayal I found clarity. I became the architect of my life, designing chapters filled with agency and purpose. The revenge was not a fleeting act. It was a long, methodical correction that restored not just dignity, but power. Every witness, every parent, every student who had seen the exposure became part of the justice enacted. And so, with Sam by my side, my bookstore thriving, and my sense of self reclaimed, I walked away from the ruins Nate and Tara left behind. The final page of our story had been written, not in tears, but in action. I was the hero of my own life, scars intact, mind sharp, and the narrative finally mine to command.